The Sports Bash with Mike Gill. It's time for Football at 4 with Geoff Mosher, powered by InsideTheBirds.com.
We expect to win every time we step on the field. That's just the mindset that we have.
Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4, it's a Mosher Monday, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. The latest podcast dropped this morning at 6 a.m. for more on the Philadelphia Eagles at camp with Geoff Mosher and Adam Kaplan. Geoff Mosher's in the house today. Football at 4 is being brought to you today by PlaySugarHouse.com. Sign up now. They'll match your first deposit up to $250. Go to PlaySugarHouse.com and win real money with their sports book, along with casino gains from the comfort of your home. Must be 21 or older to play. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's bring Geoff Mosher in. We got a lot to dive into, Geoff, and obviously it was a wild weekend around the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's first start with the big injury. Jalen Reagor, you reporting that he is out 3 to 4 weeks with a labrum shoulder problem, and it looks like he will not be ready for opening day.
Yes, it looks like that right now, Mike. Hope you guys had a great weekend. Jalen Reagor suffered the injury at practice. The shame of it is that it was during that scrimmage. If you remember, he missed the first scrimmage with, I think, a stomach bug that had been going around. So this latest injury happens during the scrimmage in which Jalen Hurts throws an interception, and Jalen Reagor does a good thing that you like to see in camp, a guy hustling to make the tackle after the interception, but he landed very hard. Now, people originally felt it might have been a wrist or arm injury because that's what he was holding. But after they did the MRI, they were able to see that it was a labrum injury. So the pain must have kind of shot down his arm. But the good news is that it doesn't need surgery. The bad news is, though, that he's going to be out a few weeks. I know that they're waiting on the result of a second opinion, but I was told Jalen's feeling a lot better today. Swelling seems to be down. Maybe there's a chance if you're going to err on one side or the other, and I know that the way things have gone with the Eagles the last few years, people tend to look at 4 weeks and think 3 months. Maybe there's a slight chance that he recovers a little faster, but I still think the 3 to 4 week timetable is pretty accurate and fair.
Obviously, that brings up the next question of how was he looking in camp and how are the Eagles, what was his role going to be and how will the Eagles now fill that?
He was looking really good in camp, what you wanted to see out of your first-round pick, especially with this condensed and altered training camp version and no OTAs. He was far and away doing what they asked him to do. He was going to start at the X position on the side opposite Deshaun Jackson, and he was also going to be the primary punt returner, I was told. And now they obviously have to go to Plan B for both of those spots going into the year. I would suspect that JJ Arcega-Whiteside will see a lot of time at the X, and I think we have to see how they feel about Hightower, the rookie 5th-round pick. He's done really well in camp, but we talk about this a lot, right? All the guys who shine every year at camp, and then for whatever reason, it doesn't translate into the regular season. Clearly, the guy's got to make the team just based on the fact that Reagor and Alshon Jeffrey are unlikely to play in week 1, and maybe more for Jeffrey. So you've got spots open. You've got Arcega-Whiteside, you've got Deshaun, and you've got Greg Ward as your top 3. So Hightower's going to make it. It'll be interesting to see if they can get him on the field at all and he can make an impact, week 1.
All right. Obviously, if he's out for just a couple of weeks, I guess once he gets back, you have this interesting situation that I see looming is does he, where does Reagor fit right back in? And then you have Alshon Jeffrey, who, as Adam Kaplan has mentioned a couple of times on your podcast, Inside the Birds, and on Football at 4, that it looks like Jeffrey is going to be back sooner than later. So a depleted Eagles receiving core could have a different look, 2-3 weeks into the season.
Yeah, Adam, even on the most recent podcast that dropped this morning, mentioned that he feels that Alshon has a shot to play in September. Not necessarily week 1 against Washington, maybe not even week 2, but sometime in September. And it will be interesting to see what his conditioning is like. I mean, if he doesn't get on the field to at least practice a little bit or get some conditioning in this week, then you can probably rule out week 1 and maybe even week 2. As soon as he starts getting on the practice field and doing something in some sort of capacity, then you can start to build maybe a more accurate timetable around that. So what they do from now, I think it'll be fascinating to see if Jalen Reagor comes back before Alshon and has some, really good efforts and good games. How do they work Alshon into the mix with Reagor and Deshaun manning the 2 outside spots? But as you guys were well aware of, I mean, usually these things get settled out just based on injury alone and not even performance.
What was Jalen Reagor doing in camp so well that amazed everyone? What stood out most in his game?
Yeah, it's a good question, Hunter. So when they drafted him, I think what makes him a little bit unique is that even though he's 5'11", 195, he's built like Jeremy Maclin. And Jeremy Maclin had a nice career as an Eagles receiver. But what I think he does even better is attacking the football. He's very strong for his size, and he's very good at contested catches. I think he was one of the best contested catch wide receivers in college last year. He has tremendous vertical. And if you remember, we were kind of laughing a week or two ago. Carson Wentz made a Julio Jones comparison, and it seems ridiculous on the surface because of how good Julio is and also how big and tall and lengthy Julio is, which Jalen Reagor is not. But the point was that for being his size, Jalen can really get up in the air and make those catches and grab the ball. And, Adam has made a really good point. When's the last time the Eagles really had a receiver like that? Maclin was a good West Coast receiver, but he wasn't known for going up and getting the ball. He was going to try to beat a defense over the top or across the middle. And Deshaun, we know, beats defenses across the top. But it's been a long time since the Eagles have had that kind of wide receiver who was a real go-getter of the football.
Yeah, and I know that Arcega-Whiteside's name has been mentioned as another guy having a solid camp, as is John Hightower. So I guess the Eagles are going to see what they get from Arcega-Whiteside, and then you wonder if Hightower, are they going to trust him enough to make him a part of this offense with Reagor out?
Yeah, and the one thing to really keep in mind is that the Eagles, as we talk about a lot, are a heavy 12 personnel team. They play more 2 tight end formations than any team in the league. And there's no reason why they can't play more if they feel that it's to their benefit. And obviously, if you're short 2 wide receivers in week 1 and your 2 of your best players are Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, then you can play more 12 personnel than you typically play, even when you are the leader in 12 personnel formations. And when you think about the fact that if you're going to take one part of the Washington football team and say, where are they really tough for a team that hasn't won a lot lately, you look at that front 7. I mean, they got pass rushers all over the place between Montez Sweat and Ryan Kerrigan, Chase Young that they drafted, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. So it doesn't hurt the Eagles to be a little bit beefier up front in that 12 personnel to play a team like that. And then the second thing I would say is, although it's annoying to have both Alshon and Jalen out for the season opener, you get usually 5 playmakers on the field at one time outside of the quarterback, right? Well, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert, Deshaun Jackson, and Miles Sanders are going to be 4 of those 5 playmakers in most cases, and that's still pretty good.
Speaking of 12 personnel, is there any update on the Zach Ertz contract extension?
No, the last I looked into it, and we talked about how people can get kind of misled by certain headlines. I know the NFL Network and Jeff McClain had also reported that talks re-engaged recently between Ertz's camp and the Eagles, and that's true. But then you'll see people aggregate that as saying talks heating up or, talks getting close. And that part I cannot say is true. I don't think they're any closer now than they were a week or 2 or 3 ago when they weren't really discussing. At least that's the information that I've been given. So we'll have to see how this situation goes on. They have 2 years of control over Zach Ertz. And so the Eagles don't have to do anything unless, Zach Ertz becomes the type of guy who tries to, use a power play or leverage and sitting out. And I don't know that he would do that either. I know Adam said, and I tend to agree with him on this, this year, Zach Ertz, you'll see play most likely. I don't know about next year on this deal that he's on right now.
All right, Jeff, let's go to the other big story that happened this weekend. Dillard got hurt last week. So the obvious question was, are you going to move Jason Peters back? It seemed that would be the first priority. However, Jason Peters threw a little wrench into the wheel over the weekend. He says, if you want to move me back to tackle, you need to pay me like a tackle. What happens now? Are the Eagles and the Peters camp in a stare down? Who has the upper hand? Is Peters are you disappointed in Peters? I mean, how do you read this whole situation?
I generally stay relatively neutral on these type of discussions. I tweeted this. I think Jason Peters has every right to ask for more money, and the Eagles have every right to say no. And then it becomes a stare down, as you mentioned, or who blinks first. I know a lot of people feel like Jason Peters has all the leverage because Andre Dillard went down, because Matt Pryor kind of got the first crack and didn't look very good in practice. But there's other solutions. And what's Jason Peters going to do if they don't give him a raise? Is he going to quit? Is he going to retire? Or is he going to ask for his release? If he does, is he going to get a job somewhere else that's going to pay him left tackle money? Because he was on the open market for 4 months and didn't get a contract that was good enough for him to say yes to. So he came back to the Eagles to play right guard. So I don't know that the Eagles feel like they have to, do anything with Jason Peters. And right now they're keeping him at right guard, and they've got a week or two here to see if Jordan Mailata can play left tackle. I can't understand for the life of me why Matt Pryor got the first crack at left tackle. He's not a left tackle. He didn't play left tackle in college. He's not the kind of athlete that you would want to see at left tackle. I'm surprised that Jordan Mailata didn't get the first crack. And I'm a little bit surprised, guys, that and it doesn't get discussed very much, but I don't know why you can't move Lane Johnson over to left tackle. I know he's not practicing right now, so he couldn't have done it, but I don't understand why that's not discussed. I know that he's comfortable there and that he's a very good right tackle, but think about if he could play left tackle, you have a little bit better options. Then, okay, Matt Pryor at least played right tackle in college, so maybe he could play there. Jordan Mailata, even Jack Driscoll, who has been a really impressive rookie, could play some right tackle. And I get the feeling that Jack Driscoll is going to play a little bit this season if there's some injury problems.
So you mentioned a lot of scenarios here, except for one of which the Eagles saying, hey, Jason, somebody got hurt. We need you to play left tackle. Does he just say no, refusal?
He might, and then I don't know what I don't know. He's such a cult. He has a very good relationship with the owner. I don't know that it's going to get acrimonious at all. Maybe they keep him at right
Jeff,
guard.
you said you like to stay neutral on this, which I can respect. Obviously, you're a reporter covering the team. Are you surprised at all that Peters essentially put himself above the team?
Well, he hasn't yet. They haven't moved him to left tackle. Look, they didn't come out and say we want Jason Peters to play left tackle. So I don't know where they're at with their mindset. I mean, I think they want someone who play left tackle who's going to be healthy and play all 16 games there. And I don't know if they feel like if moving Jason Peters to left tackle, that just becomes a Band-Aid until he, has to miss some snaps for a game, and then they have to figure out another left tackle as well as right guard. You understand what I'm saying? So when I say I'm neutral, I'm just being – it's not even about what I think is best. It's about I see why both sides feel – the way they feel. But I'll say this about Jason Peters. He should have known going into his contract negotiations with the Eagles that Andre Dillard didn't look great last year, didn't have an offseason this year that was typical, and that it's probably in the back of the Eagles' minds that he may have to play left tackle at some point this year. Jason Peters should have known that and had something written into his contract to say, if you're moving me to left tackle, then you're going to have to bump my pay. That anybody could have seen clear as day, right? I mean, I think anybody could have really
or put clauses,
and he didn't have that done.
Right, put clauses in the contract that said, if I get X amount of snaps at this position, I can earn more money.
Right, and he didn't have that done, so that's on him. So that's why I say, fine, if the Eagles say no, I think they've got every right to say no and move on and do, go about their business.
It almost seems as if he's using the time as leverage. Like, if this happened during week 4, week 5, is he going to say in the middle of the year, like, I'm not moving to left tackle? Like, I almost feel like he's using where the clock is in terms of the schedule to his advantage against the Eagles.
I don't know, because I don't know if the Eagles are going to let 4 or 5 weeks go by where they're kind of uncertain about their situation. I think they're going to take these next 7 to 10 days they got before the season opener and figure out if Mailata or somebody else can't be a good enough left tackle to keep Jason Peters at right guard.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll see. I mean, I could be wrong. Look, they're off today. They could practice tomorrow, and maybe Jason Peters is left tackle. I tend to think, just knowing the team, and that Jason's not the type of guy that you have to get left tackle reps for a whole week. Like, they could probably 2 days before the season opener say, you know what, Jason, you're going to be a left tackle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then maybe it becomes an issue. I have no idea. We have to see what unfolds there. But it's not like they need to get him over at left tackle in practice right now to get him ready to play that position.
Right. Now, he was asked on Saturday, Peterson, about what's the plan at left tackle, and he said Peters is obviously in the conversation. Shortly after that, there's a report that says, well, he wants more money. And then I guess on Sunday, he was not playing tackle yesterday, correct? He was playing guard.
He was playing guard, and Adam Kaplan reported that it was one of his best that he had heard. He was told that this was one of Jason Peters' best practices at right guard.
Yeah, so I don't know. It just seems like if you were going to do it, you would do it sooner than later. Maybe not. I don't know. You're right. Tomorrow they get out to practice. They might get out there and put Jason Peters at left tackle, but I would have to think that he gives them the best shot playing left tackle.
He would, but then you've got a situation. So you have to say, do you want that? And then now you have to fill your right guard spot. Are you confident with Matt Pryor? Or do you want to give yourself 7 to 10 days to say, how are we with Jordan Mailata? We really like this guy. He's enormous. He's a tremendous athlete. Is he picking up this enough to be able to hold his own at left tackle so that we could keep a really good player in Jason Peters at right guard? And not only that, have Matt Pryor as a good piece of depth. At least he started games, because depth is now a big issue on the offensive line. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they tried to go out. I know Riley Rife's name is out there because he might get cut by the Vikings. And that's another thing. If they can bring in Riley Rife to have him play, either be a backup or play guard or play tackle, it gives them more flexibility. So they've got some. They don't have a lot of time, but they do have some time to figure this out.
Yep, we know the opener is coming up 2 weeks. They'll play the Washington football team. You can hear the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And, of course, training camp. Yesterday was the last day of quote-unquote training camp. There were no preseason games, but yesterday was the last day. How about Jalen Hurts? Has anybody kind of talked about – has anybody seen him in, any other role other than just playing backup quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, right now, Nate Sudfeld is the number 2. It's been a very inconsistent camp for Nate Sudfeld, but it's not as if it's been such a great camp for Jalen Hurts that the coaching staff feels like they're going to flip-flop 2 and 3. In fact, the feedback I get from Jalen is that he looks like a rookie quarterback who would expect to look at this point. There are some things he does really well. There are other things that are that just are a work in progress, and that's what they expected. He's coming from that Oklahoma spread offense, and now he's in a West Coast offense, and the verbiage is so different. You're not looking at the card on the sideline and having the head coach really make all the calls. You have to have ownership of the offense to be ready to go in there and be a quarterback from top to bottom, and so he's not ready yet. I think the big question is, and again, there's 2 weeks left here. What's on Howie's mind? Are they comfortable with going into the season with Sudfeld and Hurts as the backups when neither of them have a whole lot? I mean, Hurts has 0 NFL experience. Sudfeld only has a little bit. The last 3 years, they've kind of gotten very used to having either Nick Foles or a Josh McCown, a real veteran, come in and lead the offense. Are they comfortable now going into the year for the first time in a long time with a non-veteran backup quarterback?
What's the deal with Carson's minor soft tissue injury? It seems like it's nothing too serious, but, what exactly is going down there?
Yeah, I've heard that it's nothing too serious, and a lot of it is precautionary. I don't know that I wouldn't expect to say he'll be back at practice tomorrow, but I also don't think it's going to keep him out of the season opener as well.
Geoff Mosher at Geoff Mosher NFL, Inside the Birds podcast. The latest one drops today. Ngakoue got traded. When you see what they dealt, Minnesota did, would you have said, "Oh, I would have felt comfortable with that"?
Yeah, the compensation, the trade compensation, Mike, I don't think was ever an issue for the Eagles or anyone involved. I mean, it was pretty clear, the Jags wanted at least a second round pick and more, after the draft. And I don't think the Eagles were worried so much about what it would take to get him. The question is what it would take to afford him for the long term, right? He's a guy who, and I see that he made kind of a deal to play for less for this past year for Minnesota, but he's going to command a whole lot of money, upwards of 20 to 23 million a year. And that is not a price tag that I think the Eagles believe that they can realistically afford without making a whole lot of moves to getting rid of player X, Y, Z. And then all of a sudden your depth really gets tested. And we already know the Eagles are well over the cap. They can manage it, but with COVID here and the fact that the cap might go down, they may have to manage it even more so than in the past. So while I'm sure they would love the player and he fits the scheme and there's interest, it just didn't – financially it was not feasible, and I don't think Howie wanted to give up 2 picks for a 1-year rental either.
All right, Geoff Mosher, by the way, the latest Inside the Birds podcast goes deeper into all these conversations. And you can also go to InsideTheBirds.com and get their new newsletter, which will give you updates on all the Eagles news and notes throughout the season. Geoff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Andrew DeCecco is on tomorrow with Football at 4. We're getting you ready for the Eagles opener in 2 weeks against Washington. And, of course, he, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. Make sure you check out the latest Inside the Birds podcast. Geoff, thanks, man.
All right, no problem. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, man. And Geoff Mosher, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. He will be back on Wednesday's edition of Football at 4, which is brought to you by PlaySugarHouse.com. They'll match your first deposit up to $250.